You're listening to Brandon Sports Talk, interviewing professional athletes and Paralympians and Olympians. And now for your professional athlete interview and your host, Brandon P.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I had the privilege to interview the Canada Handball Hayden Wong. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, thank you.
I'm doing good. Can you talk about how you knew that you wanted to play professional handball?
So I actually started handball back in grade 10. I just joined my high school team because I wanted to play as many sports as possible. So that's how I found out about it. And then unfortunately, I'm still not a professional because I don't get paid. Actually, I pay my own way for everything. But that's kind of how I got into it. And then I just continued to play and kind of work my way up and just fell in love with the sport and becoming more competitive as I went on. So yeah.
What was that experience like for you to get to compete in soccer and then transfer over to playing handball?
Yeah, so I soccer was my main sport that I played. I played at a decently high level for youth sport. Like we have a club system here where I live in Edmonton, Alberta. So I played in there kind of growing up, and I really wanted to continue to play into post-secondary and maybe like go down to the States or play somewhere in Canada or something. And then once I kind of found handball in high school, then my path kind of changed a little bit because I saw more of what I could be doing regarding traveling and things like that. There seemed to be more opportunities in handball because it was a smaller sport. So that was really enticing to me to be able to continue to, travel the world and play with my friends and all that stuff. So that's ultimately when I made the decision to focus my energy into handball instead of soccer was in grade 12. So I kind of decided, okay, I'm not going to go down that post-secondary route of trying to obtain a scholarship for soccer, and I decided that I was going to put my efforts into handball. So yeah.
Of course, in high school, what was that experience like getting to get your first taste of playing in handball?
I found it very fun because, like I said, I just kind of played all the sports that I could growing up. So, kind of once I hit grade 7, there's more school sports offered. So, I just joined pretty much every single team possible. And handball is such a big mix of other sports, I find. So, you're using like dribbling, you're using passing, throwing, footwork in the moves that you do and all that kind of stuff. So I found it really interesting to be able to combine skills that I've learned in other sports into that sport. And to just kind of be on a level playing field with everyone else where nobody really knows what it is. So that gave me kind of a chance to excel using my previous knowledge from other skills I had from different sports.
After, of course, playing it in high school, what was that experience like getting to make a national team and getting to play handball?
It was very interesting because actually I started with the provincial team and I played with the provincial team for about a year and a half before I was able to make the junior national team. In Canada, we don't have very much handball at all, so it's very small. And when at the time it was a tournament, and the program has gotten a little bit better now, but we still don't have like the best federation ever here, and like there's just not that many people that play, and people don't get paid to coach and all that kind of thing. So it was a tournament in Puerto Rico for the IHF trophy, and our team was basically half Alberta, half Quebec, because that's kind of where handball's a little bit more concentrated throughout Canada. So we just got selected basically by our provincial coach, and then the other teammates got selected in Quebec by their coach, who was also the coach of the team. Then we just all showed up in Puerto Rico, met each other there, practiced, played a few scrimmages together, and then we played in the tournament. So it was definitely not as intense as I thought it would be. Since then, like I said, it's gotten to be a much more better program. But my first taste of national team, of course, it was still very rewarding to represent my country, but it definitely wasn't as organized as I assumed it would be.
What was that feeling like the first time you got to represent your country and make it on the national team level?
It was very special, like to be able to just stand there with the Canada jersey on and listen to the national anthem. Like I always get chills when I listen to the national anthem. Doesn't matter if it's been the first time or if it's been 50 times since then. It's always really special to do that and to be able to kind of be representing something bigger than yourself. Um, I think we're really lucky because, like I said, handball is a little bit of a smaller sport in Canada, but in the world, like worldwide in Europe and South America, even in Central America and stuff, it's a lot bigger. So to be able to do that there and kind of see how important it is to them and be able to be representing your country in that context was really special.
In 2016, what was that experience like going to the Pan American Junior National Games?
That one was very interesting to me. And like I said, because South America, Brazil is really big into handball. They've won world championships before for women. They produce a lot of like the best players that are currently playing in Champions League and things like that. So that was very special because we got to play some of those really good players. And it's very interesting now because, like, for anyone that's in the handball community, if you follow women's handball, you probably know who Bruna De Paula is. There's some other players, lots of them have played in the Olympics before. She's constantly on highlight reels in Champions League. I just saw a post on Instagram today about her moving clubs and how it was like one of the biggest transfers. And I actually got to play her when we were like 18 years old, and before she was a big star and everything, and we just knew like her level was just way beyond all of ours, but we knew that she would turn into something amazing. But to be able to say that I started at that time playing against her when she was really like not known is really cool. And there's some other players as well, but she's probably the biggest one.
Of course, what was that experience like, as you said, getting to play against her before she was well known to what she is now?
I mean, at the time, she was still like way better than us and way better than like most of the players there. And super young still, right? So I mean, you could see that she was just like way beyond. And I mean, Brazil won that tournament by a landslide. Even Argentina is also pretty good, and they're usually the only ones that can kind of give Brazil a little bit of a run for their money. But still, Brazil's very dominant, and I don't think they've lost to them at all in the last, at least since I played. So like the last decade. So just to see like how much different that level is, and to be able to like tangibly play against her and kind of see like, okay, yeah, she's way better than us, or like, she can basically just do whatever she wants on the court and succeed. It was very eye-opening, but like very special now that I can see that. And actually we got to play against her again at the 2019 Pan Am Games. So to see like how the levels changed even just in those 3 years was crazy. And who knows, maybe she'll be at the 2023 Santiago Games as well.
How was that experience like in 2019, going to the Pan American Games and getting to play Team USA?
That was definitely the most incredible experience I've had so far in handball. So I'm very grateful to be able to be a part of the 2023 Pan Am game team as well, because it's just a different world. Like handball is one thing, and yes, in other countries it's bigger and it's really small in Canada, but to be able to be at a games where it's almost like a mini Olympics where you have all different sports and all different like high level athletes that are competing in the Olympics, competing in world championships and things at all different disciplines is very, very cool. And to be with all the Canadian athletes in the village was probably one of the coolest things. Definitely team clothing is also up there. Like to be able to everybody has all the same kit is awesome. We actually didn't get to play US at the Pan Am Games, but we did play them in 2018 for the qualifier. So they actually beat us in 2018. We played one game in US and one game in Canada in Montreal. And then we ended up having to go to the second chance tournament to qualify and find our spot there. And then we didn't actually cross over with them at all at Pan Am Games. So they did finish higher than us. And then this time around, we did beat them in the qualifier. So now they're actually at the second chance tournament right now in Dominican Republic.
Of course, what is that rivalry like, getting to play Team USA versus Canada?
I think it's a very good rivalry, and I think USA and Canada are both in about the same position right now when it comes to resources, popularity, and things like that. Like, I agree. Like, I've heard, many other people say this as well, but I think really if people did see what handball is and they kind of grasped it and it was presented to people, I think there would definitely be a large appetite for it consumer wise. So I hope one day that happens. And I think like the US is a great place for that. And I think for them, that should hopefully be something that happens soon because they are hosting the 2028 Olympics and they will get a spot for that. So they're going to be attending world championships and stuff before that. The men have kind of already taken off a little bit. But I do think that the US has a lot more players that are international that have US citizenship. So they don't necessarily always live in the US. And I hope that eventually they can kind of build their foundation to have more of those players that are born, live in the US forever, and play on the US team. But it is a nice rivalry to have because we're both kind of in that position of not being super popular when it comes to handball. And then when we get to play each other, it's just always fun to have a Canada USA rivalry, along the border and stuff.
Of course, for my listeners that don't know, how do you play handball?
So it is a very fast-paced sport. There's a lot of goals every game. Usually each team is scoring between 20 to 30 goals. So it's very interesting because it's not like when you watch soccer where there's only like a couple goals a game or sometimes even no goals a game. There's always scoring and it's very fast. It's been called the fastest game on a court before, but there's dribbling like in basketball. There's a little bit different rules when it comes to dribbling. A lot of throwing, a lot of passing, like hundreds, thousands of passes a game. Fast shooting, there's jumping and shooting. You can only take 3 steps with the ball unless you're dribbling. So 3 steps and then you have to dribble. And once you dribble, you can keep the dribble alive, but as soon as you pick it up, it's done. So there's a lot of fast movement when it comes to the ball so that you can try to get a good angle to score. And then there's also a crease that you can't enter on both sides. So a lot of people compare it to water polo, but on land.
Of course, what is that like, obviously, getting to be compared to water polo, but on land? And how is that like going from shooting to kicking?
Um, I think it's quite accurate. I mean, like I'm not an expert in water polo either, but I think it's more like the throwing action and like the idea of passing the ball around quickly around the area to be able to find an opening to shoot. There is no kicking in handball. So if it touches your foot, it's either a turnover or sometimes it can be a 2-minute penalty, depending on if it's like intentional. And the other thing I guess that makes it quite interesting is like the contact. So just like in water polo, there's lots of contact. Obviously it's a little bit different in the water, but as long as you're being in front of the person, like between the person and the net, there's a lot of clean contact that makes it really interesting as well. So for those people that kind of like the more contact sports, that's also appealing in handball.
What are some of your routines and rituals like preparing for game days?
Usually on a game day, we like rarely do we have national team game days because we aren't able to go to like a ton of tournaments and things like that. And obviously, like I said, I'm not a professional, so I don't play in a professional league. So on a typical game day, if I'm playing with a national team, it's usually we're eating really good meals, making sure that we're hydrated, making sure that we have enough energy for our game. We usually do some type of mental preparation on a game day. So we'll have like an hour-long meeting or something. Usually it involves some kind of activation or yoga that we do as well, just to kind of get our bodies prepared, or maybe like a walk or something like that. And then we also usually have a nap, which is really nice to be able to make sure that we have enough energy for the game. So it's really just about resting, preparing our bodies, preparing our minds mentally, getting ready for the game, and just having the game be the sole focus.
How is that experience like getting to travel the world and getting to represent Team Canada in handball?
It's amazing. Like I would not trade it for anything. I've done a lot of traveling for handball. Most of the traveling that I've done is for handball. So it's definitely different when you go on a handball trip versus like a vacation because you're going there to play and you might get lucky and have a day or two off, or maybe sometimes you're able to stay after to do some traveling on your own. But to be able to go there and like especially to Europe or to other places where handball is big, it's really special because you just get to see it in a whole new light. Like I remember going to Sweden in 2015, I think, or 2014, I think. I think I won both years. And there's a huge tournament there called Partille Cup. And it is like thousands of teams. You play outside because there's not enough gyms. And you just play short games, and it's just a ton of games against all these other players and all these other teams from across the world. There's teams from Africa, there's teams from Europe, teams from Asia. So to be able to kind of come together and, even though you don't speak the same language, everybody knows how to play handball and you can interact in that way is just really, really cool. And then with the national team, like probably one of the coolest experiences I've been able to have other than Pan Am Games is we just went to Greenland in June for the World Championship qualifier, which we call Norca. And like Greenland is such a small community, like the population there, I think, is only 40,000 people. And in the town of Nuuk, which is where we were, I think the population's only 19,000. But to see like they had thousands of fans at the game, they were all out in the community, you know, like when you were out in walking around, there was people like taking pictures of us and stuff. Like we really felt like celebrities, even though I'm just like, I feel like I'm just an average person. But when you go there and you see like really cool communities like that, where it's so small, but there's like such a huge population that plays handball and knows what it is. I don't think you can get those types of experiences without that type of travel.
What is that experience like getting to travel and going to those countries like Europe where handball is so popular?
Yeah, like I mean, like I said, it's just to be able to see how important and like integral that is in their culture, and to be a part of that for even just a brief moment is just really special. So, like I wish one day that we could bring that here, and I mean that's something that I try to do in my coaching endeavors and stuff is to introduce people to the sport because if it was that big here, it'd just be so much more fun.
Of course, as you talk about your coaching endeavors, what is that like obviously getting to coach the Edmonton club team?
Yeah, so I ran the Edmonton Handball Club for a few years. We started in 2017 and we've kind of built since then. And we offer everything from youth teams like U16 all the way up to adult leagues. So there's really no like limit. We take players of all ages, players of all skill levels because, like I said, one of my goals is to grow the sport here. So it's really special to be able to do that. It is hard because we don't really have any resources. So everything is kind of paid for ourselves. So all the players that play have to pay. We have to fundraise and find money for equipment and all that type of thing. So it's hard, but it is very rewarding. So I'm also a high school teacher. That's my occupation. And I coach at school as well. And I've coached high school handball for quite a while. So that's where my passion really shines through is to be able to kind of integrate my passion outside of school to my work as well.
What is that like obviously balancing being a professional handball player, a high school teacher, and also a club teacher?
It's a lot. I'm very busy. Being a high school teacher, like I always knew kind of from the time I left high school that I wanted to do that. So I went into university and I did a dual degree. So I did a degree in kinesiology as well. And from then, when I started coaching, that really impacted my want to be a teacher. So I kind of figured out that that was something that I would enjoy from coaching. So I really am grateful for that. And then to be able to kind of continue it, it's just very special to coach a team at the school because you just get a different relationship with the students and things that you can carry into the classroom. So when I'm teaching, I usually teach sports medicine and math. But to be able to kind of see those students and those kids outside of the classroom setting and in a sport setting, you know, where I was in their shoes 10 years ago, where I was just discovering the sport and everything. So just to be able to instill that in them and let them know about like the opportunities that they could have is special.
As a player, what has it been like obviously taking over your experience playing over into your coaching experience and vice versa?
Yeah, like I think a lot of the qualities that you need are very similar. Like as a person that plays sports, you learn a lot, whether it's, you know, about the skill that you're in the sport that you're playing, but I think everybody also learns a lot of lessons, and those are lessons that you go and you instill in the athletes that you're coaching as well. And I feel like I'm quite a calm person, and I try to be, you know, as collected as I can when I'm coaching and stuff. Of course, like my passion shines through sometimes, but I try to kind of instill those values and those lessons and things in the kids that I'm coaching and teaching as well.
How is that feeling like getting to meet your fans and having them ask for your autographs and photos with you?
To be honest, it's kind of weird. Like I said, I just feel like a normal person. So when we go on those trips and stuff, and like there's little kids like in Greenland, there was tons of little kids and people that were asking us to sign their jerseys and sign flags and like their, you know, they had little notepads and all this stuff. And like to them, you just seem like you're like I said, I'm not a professional athlete because I don't get paid, but it seems like you're just like in another world, like a professional, and like it's something that they've never seen before. And I mean, again, Greenland is really small, and I don't know how many people actually get to leave that often because they don't have like roads and things connecting them. They have to fly or take boats. So for them, it was probably really, really cool. For me, it just seemed weird because I'm like, okay, I'm not anybody special, but like this person thinks that I am. So it's really cool to be able to do that and take pictures with kids and stuff like that. And like I said, it's not something that I would ever have like just going on a vacation or like if I didn't have the chance to play handball. So
Who are some of the handball players that you look up to?
definitely anybody that played before me. So, you know, handball has grown a lot in the last like 20 to 30 years, I would say, in Canada and specifically where I live in Alberta. So I don't really know what it was like when those guys started and there was barely anyone in that played. And, you know, somebody might have come over from Europe and kind of had an idea of what the game was and wanted to grow it and got people out. So I think back about that sometimes because even now, from the time that I started to the time to now, there's a lot more opportunity now for kids to just get involved. And, you know, you can just join your local club and that's it. And it's just that easy. But even when I started, we're barely scraping together teams. So I really look up to those people that kind of pushed through and did their part in growing the sport in Alberta specifically. I also look up to a lot of players that, you know, other professionals that are able to play constantly, and you know, people like Bruna De Paula, Amarim, Camilla Harem, all those people. Of course, I like envy them and I'm in awe of them, and I look up to them like my idols. Although I know that I probably will never be them because I didn't choose that path of professional handball. I chose the path of teaching. So
Of course, what is that like getting to play with some of your teammates like Emily, Alexandra, and Kaylee?
it's very special because, like I said, it's still quite concentrated in Alberta and Quebec. Across Canada, like there is handball in other provinces as well, like Manitoba, Saskatchewan, BC, Ontario, but it's not as big there. So I have currently on the national team, there's a couple of us from Alberta. There's the rest of us are from Quebec. My coach is from Quebec. So a few of the players that you listed are from Quebec, and kind of some of them I met years ago when we were playing against each other at national championships. So Alberta versus Quebec. Some of them I met recently. But my coach has done a really good job putting together a program for us. So this really started in 2018 for the last qualifier, where we really said, okay, we're going to put this together. We're going to take all the players, young and old. We're going to try to train together. We're going to have programs. We're going to do weightlifting. We're going to do running. We're going to meet up for camps. And because that's kind of continued in the last 5 years, it's made a huge difference. And so a lot of the players from Quebec, although I don't see them, I've become good friends with them. And, you know, when we reunite to go to a tournament or we reunite to go to a camp or something, it's always very special. I know that they're going to be my friends for life, and I'll always, you know, kind of keep in touch with them. And then as for the players here, like one player, Katya, like there's a few players from Alberta and I played with them for a while, but Katya specifically is very special to me because she and I both started at the same high school at the same time. So neither of us knew what the sport was. We joined it at the same time. We went through all the teams together. There's been very few teams that we've played on apart from each other. And the only reason that we were apart from each other is because of she's born in a different year than I am. So I was eligible for some teams because I'm younger than she was. But other than that, we've kind of just continued our journey together forever. So she's my best friend, and to be able to play with her and do these experiences is just more than I can ask for.
How's that experience been like, obviously getting to play against different provinces in Canada, but then when you go to the World Cup or the World Championship, y'all all play together as a team?
Um, Actually, there used to be a huge Quebec Alberta rivalry. So going to national championships was really like the biggest tournament that we could do as a provincial team, other than traveling to Europe. Just kind of those trips were for development and for fun. So for us, a national championship was always the goal. And because it's more concentrated in Alberta and Quebec, those are typically the two strongest teams. So we always had a rivalry against each other, and we never really knew each other, right? So when we did get together in 2018, we realized, oh, okay, like these rivals are actually nice, and like I actually want to be friends with them and I want to play with them and I want to learn from them. So now I would say like it's been a while since we've had a national championships because of COVID. It kind of shut everything down. And we haven't really had any since then. So I think if we were to go today and play against them, it would be a lot of fun because you're playing against your teammates, you're playing against your friends. So it would be competitive because we all like to win. But it would be awesome to play against them now that I actually like know all of them personally.
What are some of the things that you've learned now that you didn't know before getting started in playing handball?
Um, I guess going back to those lessons, like I think it's very common for all sports and especially specifically team sports, But you learn things like discipline, teamwork, commitment, time management is a huge one. Like, so that's something that I kind of have continued to learn as I grew up. And I think handball's really helped with that as well, because we do have to fund our own way. So in that sense, you're not just going on a free trip, you know, you're putting the work in on the court, in the gym, running, doing all that stuff, but you're also putting the work in and knowing that you're paying for that. So like my coach always says, like, we're not getting paid for this. You might as well have fun while you're doing it. So that's really been kind of a key message for us, is it does place a different type of importance on it when, like, I clearly want to do it if I'm spending all the money and resources to do it, and to put all the work in as well. So that's definitely taught me something about like my passion.
What would you tell your younger self, looking back on your career so far, what would you tell your younger self getting started in the sport of handball?
I think I would just say, like, because I was very confused. I was like, oh, do I go play handball? Do I play soccer? Like, what do I do? Like, I would just tell myself to go for it. Like, these opportunities and the chances to travel at that young age, like, I would never want to take that away from myself. So I think just telling myself to work hard, and like working hard will pay off. You know, taking advantage of my opportunities and stuff, which I think I did. But going back, like, I had no idea what was in store for me. So I'm definitely glad that I made the decision that I did, because I think I went a lot further in handball than I would have in soccer. But just, you know, the classic, work hard and things will come to you.
What are some of your future plans in the sport of handball moving forward?
So we're right now focusing on the Pan Am Games. I actually just got back from a camp in Quebec last week. We had a full camp with all of the members in the program. So that's kind of our like nearsighted competition that we have. So our goal there would be to medal and to try to do as best as we can. After that, we're kind of all taking a breather, because our group has been together really for the last 5 years. Most people are still on the team that were in 2019, with only just a few changes. So I think everyone kind of just needs like a little bit of a break, kind of reevaluate where we're at. We also, when we went to Greenland, lost in the World Championship qualifier by only 2 goals. So if we would have won that last championship game, we would have actually gone to the World Championships in December. So that's something that maybe could be on the horizon for us in the future, is trying to qualify for the World Championships, which for us would be huge, because that hasn't happened since the 90s for Canada. So it's been a long time. But for me specifically, I think I'm just taking it day by day at this point. It is very hard to balance playing handball in the national team and having a whole career and working full time. So I think it's day by day. Like, I'm focusing on Pan Am Games first and trying to achieve our goal, and then I'll reevaluate again after.
What advice would you give those people that are looking to go into playing handball for a national team like Canada or US?
Oh, I would say if you are a US citizen, I would say you need to start right now, because like I said, they have the 2028 Olympics. Like, I would kill if it was 2028 Olympics in Canada. I would be along for the ride for sure. Like, there's just no opportunity like that, and they're so lucky. Like, even though they are a nation that's not as developed when it comes to handball, like, we're nowhere near those South American teams or the European teams. Like, if we went to Euros, we would get crushed. Even if we go to Worlds, I'm like, it would be a miracle if we got one victory. And that's just being realistic, I think. But they're so lucky because they're in that position, but they just get the host bid. So, you know, I would say, like, continue to push through, do everything that you can for the next 5 years. As for Canada, you know, even though we don't have that opportunity where we're getting that host spot, I would say, like, we've come a long way, especially with the women's program. Even with the men's, they just barely didn't qualify for the Pan Am Games as well, and they were just in Paraguay for the second chance tournament. But it's just, you know, if you have the chance to do that, there's nothing like it. So I would just say go for it.
What advice would you give those professional athletes in handball or other sports that are balancing playing their sport that they love and also doing stuff like being teachers or stuff outside of the sport?
Yeah, I would say, like, for people like me, actually, like, our whole entire team is like that. So everybody on my team is a student or it has an occupation. Like, we've got lawyers on the team, we have lots of other teachers, people that are kind of running businesses, people that are in school. So trying to balance that, like, you really have to have a passion for it. But I do think that it's so worth it. And, you know, when you're at home and here in Alberta, like, we don't even have as much handball as there is in Quebec. It's very hard for us to train here because there's just not the same amount of people. but it's hard to get through that workout. It's hard to get through the run. It's hard to, push through. But once you get to that tournament and you're in the place where you can just focus on handball, it's still so worth it.
That's great advice. Where can my listeners find you at on social media?
I have Instagram. I don't really have anything other than Instagram. So my handle is @_Haven Wong. So you can find me on there. But that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Thank you again, Hayden Wong, for your interview, and best of luck in your future representing the Canada handball team.
Thank you so much. It was very fun to be on your podcast.
Thank you. You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Instagram and Brandon Sports Talk Twitter at @talk_Brandon. And you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Hayden Wong, for your interview, and best of luck in your future.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.